So let's say someone puts a gun to your head and you have to answer truthfully. Do you want to marry the person that you love the most or the person that you've had the best sex with? So let me rephrase the question. You can only have sex with one person for the rest of your life. If we're all being honest, it's not a clear-cut answer. If you're just looking for strong emotional love, then what's the point of a relationship? The difference between a romantic relationship and any other relationship in your life is sex. So if we're going to pick somebody based on the one thing that we can only do in a romantic relationship, shouldn't that be the most important thing that we look for? I think a lot of us downplay how important great sex is in a relationship.
Men will attach to great sex, not great women. Period. The moment you are a great woman with the inability to please a man sexually, you do not stand a chance.
This could also be a problem of us living in a hypersexualized society and my generation growing up on porn. American culture and media also portrays this like super hypersexual society. Every single popular TV show back in the day seemed to be only about teenagers having sex. Instagram and TikTok is essentially softcore porn anyways. And even on YouTube, I try to avoid this content. Girls with big butts playing volleyball, these super hot DJs pop up on my feed and I just can't help myself but click on them. Every woman where I look at her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna be a great mom. She's gonna be great to be in a relationship with. It's gonna be very peaceful. I almost look at her as like a really good friend, but you can't really your friend. There are just like two kinds of people that you meet. There are people that you're like immediately attracted to and you know the sex is going to be incredible. And there's some people where you're like, okay, they're attractive, but you don't feel that initial, like your heart starts beating when you see that person. You just feel different because you're so aroused sexually by that person. I've never cheated before on anybody, but when I was married, I had the highest desire to cheat than ever before. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. One, I was not very happy in that relationship. A lot of my worst suspicions about our relationship end up coming true in the end, and then we had to break up. But I also think the idea of just being with one person for the rest of my life, such a big sacrifice, and I guess at that time I wasn't ready for it. And this is gonna sound really messed up, deep down I knew that she was not the best sexual option that I could be with. And I think the best relationships happen when both parties in a relationship feel they are with the best option that they can be. And this is only heightened by social media. Back in the day, when you were living in a small village in a small town, everything felt a lot smaller. You were only comparing with your neighbors, people you went to high school with, like that was your bar. But as soon as you go into a big city, all of a sudden your viewpoint on everything gets expanded. You can never be satisfied or happy with anything anymore. So I think this has led to a generation of women with extremely high expectations for how they should be treated, whereas men have extremely high expectations because of OnlyFans and social media with how normal women should look. So going back to the original topic of love versus sex, the ones that I have the best sex with always fizzle out, and after a couple of months, the relationship becomes extremely toxic. Whereas with the women who have maybe a better personality, the relationship itself is fantastic, and I love being with them. We can make each other laugh. I feel emotionally safe with them. But there's just something that's missing. And I wonder if you guys have been able to find both in one person. It's almost like you have to pick. Now there is the argument to be made. You can mold your partner into what you want from them physically. And I don't mean this just from men to women, but I also think from women to men. Women love the idea of styling their boyfriends. But as a man, we would also want to mold our woman into what we want from them sexually. I don't think that's an oppressive thing to say. Now the mentality for a lot of women is like, oh, men can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna dress how I want to dress, do what I want to do. If we're going to be in a relationship, one of the unwritten things is that I have to be faithful to you sexually for our whole entire relationship. Knowing how important sex is for men, wouldn't you want to be the most sexually attractive you can be to your partner? I think that's totally normal. So this is a bit of a controversial take. I think a lot of men like to say they will never cheat on their woman, but I honestly think they just don't have the optionality. And if they had a bunch of these options with women, I think 90% of these guys would cheat on their partners. It's a way for a lot of men to take something of no value and make it valuable. If you can't compete with the other men with money or status or success or fame, then you gotta find other ways to be competitive as a man. And one of the ways that a lot of men like to do this, these guys will say, oh, I will never cheat on you. But I'm like, bruv, you don't even have the opportunity to cheat on her. She's way hotter than you are. Who is more likely to cheat? The man who has never done it before, but is honest with how he feels and says that, I don't know, I might do it in the future. Or the man who says that he would never cheat on you under any circumstance, but he has done it before in the past. Who do you think is gonna cheat on you more? I'm more pragmatic. I like to judge people based on their actions, not on what they say. I think the more you have the need to express to the outside world that you are a good person is like the telltale sign of somebody who is not or is hiding something. And I would much rather be with somebody who is honest about how they feel, even if I don't like the truth, because I know exactly what I'm getting. It's an interesting question, right? People don't respect your thoughts, people respect your decisions. Everybody can talk, people can be very articulate. What does their life reflect? If their life does not reflect what they are preaching, then it kind of ruins the message. We don't know what our life is going to be like in 10 years. We don't know what our relationship is going to be like in 3 years. Things change over time. And I think the proper mentality into getting into any relationship is to keep things flexible. I don't mean flexible as in like we're always breaking the rules, but more of like, okay, we're together now, we like each other now, but we'll see how it goes over time, right? Maybe over a year, we'll reflect and we'll see, do we still like the rules of the relationship? Do we want to change? I think a relationship should be a constant discussion of what both parties want out of the relationship. Something I like about the East is that I think they do a pretty good job of separating sex from emotion. This may shock a lot of Westerners. In the Eastern countries, a lot of people are married with their main wives, but a lot of men have mistresses on the side. And that's because the mentality behind marriage in the East is more about duty, responsibility, family. And then the mistress is on the side just for what you want out of somebody sexually. It will never interfere with the main woman, the main wife. The wife is the one that gets all of the privileges. She gets the house, she gets the kids. I think the East has a lot more balanced and realistic approach to desires of men and women rather than what we have in the West where we want everything at once. Now, I'm not saying one is correct over the other. I just think we have such unrealistic expectations from what we want from our partners. We want stability and excitement at the same time. We want them to be our best friend, our exclusive sexual lover. In some cases, we want them to be our business partner. We want them to be a good parent to our future kids. We want our families to like them. There are so many things on that list already outside of sex. If I'm being honest, I don't think sex is that important when choosing somebody that I want to raise kids with. How important is sex in a relationship? And should we be looking for these things outside of the main marriage? Now, if you pay attention to the wisdom of elders and what people have been saying for generations, they say you want to marry your best friend. It's all the personality stuff that's a lot more important. The stability aspect, being able to communicate with them. And I agree with all of those things. I've seen couples who have been together for like 10, 20 years and their relationship progresses and their sex gets better, or that's at least what they say. But I wonder how much of that is true, because I think we have this societal pressure to show to the world that we're in a very happy relationship because nobody wants to know all the downsides and the toxicity and the problems. If all these relationships were so happy, why do we have so many divorces? It seems like the institute of marriage, especially in today's day and age, just doesn't really work the same as it does before. So why should we try to view relationships through the lens of these traditions that have been around for thousands of years while we're in a society that is completely different? Technology has changed modern society so quickly in such a short period of time compared to the rest of history. So I think it only makes sense that we adjust our traditions and our rules and what we want out of a relationship as time and society also progresses. One of the difficulties is trying to find a balance between things that definitely worked in the past or just throwing out the whole entire system completely and starting from scratch. And I think this is just a constant discussion that we have in life between the right and the left. One's trying to justify tradition and the other one is trying to justify change. What you want when you are in survival mode versus a place of stability is vastly different. And this goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A lot of our parents, especially if you come from a family of immigrants, our parents were together because they had to survive. Making it in a new country from the ground up is very difficult. You don't really have time to be thinking about all this other existential stuff. But as modern society improves and life gets overall better for everybody, then we have the space to be thinking about all these other things that make us happy. But it's a bit of a paradox because this happens universally all around the world. The richer societies seem to get, birth rates seem to always decline, and relationships are always less satisfactory than third world countries where a lot of people are poor. People seem to be a lot happier and more fulfilled in relationships, right? And maybe it goes back to expectations as well. It's hard to distinguish a want from a need when you are in a very needy position. A lot of people complain that Ukrainian women are gold diggers. But you have to understand, if you are a woman escaping a war-torn country, you are in survival mode. You're naturally going to be looking for the highest provider male. Doesn't that make sense to you? It's very different than the Polish girls who grew up in a very safe, stable environment, and they have the privilege of not having to worry about money as much. At the end of the day, we are evolutionary creatures. Most of our behaviors and our decisions are made through the lens of biology. I think humans generally are very ashamed of our natural behavior, and we don't like to admit this, and we like to think that we're smarter than our biology, but we cannot escape who we are. What's more important? Doing what is societally acceptable or accepting the truth of our nature and following what our biology says is correct. We live in the most hyper-aware society to ever exist, and this constant push for mental health and being self-aware, which I think is good to a certain extent. If we're so focused on ourselves, how can we have enough energy to dedicate to other people in a relationship? Where is the balance between that? I'm not saying that I have the answers. I just want to know what you guys think and if this is something that we can find agreement on. Or should we just let people decide how they want to run the relationships and not judge them for it? I think that's actually the best way forward. But if you have no rules and structure, society kind of becomes like chaos, right? So you need to find a balance of both of those things. Maybe instead of picking one between the other, we should look at it as more of a scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is sex to you and how important is love to you? The higher number that you have in both, the more difficult it is to find a partner. So what do you guys think? Am I crazy? I highly recommend that you guys watch this video next. Subscribe and like the video, and I will see you on the next one.